Hello, everybody. Wow. I've been so looking forward to this afternoon. And I want to also invite you all to please join us after the lecture for a reception in the West Architecture Atrium. I'm so happy to welcome Mack Scogin and Merrill Elam to deliver the inaugural Excellence in Architectural Design and Practice lecture. And I cannot imagine a more fitting way to start this newest tradition in our speaker series. So you might ask, why this lecture and why now? So I want to share just a few things that are in my mind that matter to me and that actually relate to how I think about and admire Mack and Merrill's work over the course of their career. I hope that the next generation of architects continues to challenge themselves to think big, to imagine and to test ideas that maybe you don't know what the outcome is going to be. And the reason why I feel that is because I think at this moment, we're in a world which feels increasingly constrained by urgency and uncertainty. And it's in this world that I believe that architectural education needs to protect the space for ambition and for speculation. I think there's a real value in staying hungry, right? To staying curious, restless, open, maybe even a little foolish in the best sense of the word. Because that willingness to take risk is often where the most meaningful innovation can take place. And so this is where that relationship between the practice, the profession, and the discipline of architecture becomes really important. So when we think about practice, practice is most nimble, right? It can adapt most easily to new technologies that are happening and be very responsive to change. The profession, on the other hand, tends to move very slowly. Maybe too slowly. It's shaped by regulation and, like an institutional inertia. The discipline, however, this is a space where we can think most expansively and critically about the implications of change. And so architectural education, in my mind, sits at the intersection of those three, where experimentation can be both rigorous, but also consequential. And so I believe that one of the roles, just one of them, of architectural education is to help students understand not only how to design, but why are you designing? Who are you designing for? And so design thinking in this way is not something where you just learn once, a skill that only is mastered at one point, but it's a lifetime practice of inquiry and iteration. And so what this means is feeling comfortable at operating across scales, across contexts, and playing different roles in that world. And seeing architecture not as something that is fixed, but is flexible. And it's always responsive as a kind of mode of engagement with the world. So getting back to Mack and Merrill, the body of work from Mack and Merrill embodies this very idea of architecture never being fixed. It's always fluid and flexible as it engages with the world. So I remember becoming first aware of Mack and Merrill when Progressive Architecture, when it was a journal, published a piece about the Buckhead Branch Library. Then I think it was House Chmar that was included in a Phaidon publication, Modern House. I can't remember which one I saw first. It doesn't even really matter. But it was really at that point that I started following their practice. This is around 1989 or 1990, right? Those two projects. So I just want to add here, this is well before ArcDaily or DZine was dutifully delivering notifications to my inbox of the next and the best. So fast forward now to 2000. So when I had first started teaching in Detroit, I had been there for a couple of years and I had an idea about a symposium that I wanted to feature architects who were pushing the boundaries of practice. This was the first time I met Merrill in person. She was one of the 5 architects, all women actually, who participated in this amazing event. And I recall at that lecture, she shared images of the Wolfsburg Science Center competition. Amazing. And I just thought, wow, like this is such another relevant lesson among their many in their design thinking ethos. That is a lifelong practice of inquiry and iteration. So interesting full circle moment. Then 15 years after that, didn't know it was in the cards, but then I arrived at Georgia Tech, the same city as Mack and Merrill. And I've really enjoyed being in the same space as them and getting to know them. All right, a little background about Mack and Merrill. Mack Scogin and Merrill Elam have been associated throughout their careers, beginning as classmates in the architecture program here at Georgia Tech. Since their firm was founded in 1984, their work has been widely published in publications, including the Rizzoli publication, Scogin, Elam, and Bray, Critical Architecture and Architectural Criticism, a University of Michigan publication named simply Mack and Merrill, and then the 2005 Princeton Architectural Press, Mack Scogin, Merrill Elam, Knowlton Hall. Their work has been exhibited at museums and galleries nationally and internationally, including the Museum of Modern Art in New York and the Wexner Center for the Arts in Ohio. Their projects have received numerous awards, including 8 American Institute of Architects National Awards of Excellence and other international awards as well. I want to specifically note their most recent impressive recognition as inductees into the American Academy of Arts and Letters. Mack and Merrill have also held an equal commitment to education. From 1990 to 1995, Mack served as the chair of the architecture department at Harvard University in the Graduate School of Design. And this is where he taught as a Kajima Professor in Practice of Architecture until 2023. Merrill Elam lectures broadly and has taught at over 20 schools of architecture, including Georgia Tech. All right, it's time for me to stop talking, and so you can hear from the 2 people that you really came here to see. Please help me in offering a very warm welcome to Mack Scogin and Merrill Elam.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh,
She couldn't get out of her seat. I'm sorry, we can't do this. Oh, she did get up.
I beat you up here.
As ever.
Oh. Well, thank you, Julie. That was fabulous. And I think we're going to be a little redundant on a few of the dates and things that you addressed. But thank you, and thanks to Dean Bassett and the school for inviting us here. You know, it's just such an honor and pleasure to be in this room with all of you all. Thank you for coming. Let's see, where should we start?
Oh,
I'll start.
please, I hope you know. We got to do the slide of the thing.
Ah, there's a little something going on. What do I need to do? Oh, that's.
Oh, that's weird.
Ugly.
Never had anybody ask us to do that. It's not working?
It's not working.
Oh, excuse me.
Wait a minute, we've got some help here. That's fine. Thank you. Okay, we're starting. When Julie invited us to do this lecture, we realized it was an inaugural lecture and that it was very important to the school. And so we're super honored about that. But unlike other places where we've lectured, she gave us an assignment. She said, I want you to do 3 things. I want you to touch on the trajectory of your practice. I want you to tell us how you define design practice through the vehicle of your work. And the 3rd point was talk about your commitment to education. So I'm hoping we're going to be covering those 3 points as you assign them to us. We'll see. Okay, so Mack likes to talk about this image you're seeing now, and I'm talking for you now.
As ever.
By the way, we don't lecture together very often.
Never.
So, We're just going to bumble over each
This
other.
is really not going to be good. Lower your expectations. Well, I wanted to start out on these two images, and I love them because when I look at them, I think, what in the world is that? How could that possibly happen? Either one of them. On the left is actually our house here in Atlanta, a phenomenological condition in our house that happens in all sorts of different ways because the house has a lot of glass, especially on the second floor where people can't see in. And I think it's fantastic. I think that's what architecture is all about. It's absorbing its surroundings and it's of a particular place. The other drawing, which is a very exact drawing of all the steel structure for a project at Wellesley College.
The Lulu Chow Wang.
The Lulu Chow Wang Campus Center. Wellesley College, as most of you probably know, is a women's college. And they had debated and avoided, frankly, building a campus center since its inception, which goes way back. And the reason was that they did not want anything on the campus that was called a center. These women needed to grow up decentered. They would be decentered. They would have a hard time finding the comfort of a center. So they challenged us to build a campus center that's decentered.
You know what the program was for it? It said a place to have fun, a place to make things, and a place full of light. And they said about this many square feet, and we were off and running. That's an ideal program, right? Okay, so the images might do better if there's a little less light, but that's up to whoever's running the room. So let us start here. The trajectory. Our early experience of course, starts after school. We joined Heary International, and we were at Heary for about 17 years. And then
let me just say one thing about Heary, just so you understand.
That's here in Atlanta.
That's here in Atlanta. I hope you know that. But Heary, George Heary founded this firm he designed his firm differently than anyone in the United States. He was an architect practicing with the promise and guarantee of time and cost of all the projects. Sounds limiting, and it was absolutely just the opposite. It opened up more possibilities than you could ever imagine. And it attracted some of the best clientele, especially corporate clientele in the country.
We'll talk more about that.
And we'll talk more about that, yeah.
So we had 4 configurations of the company name or the firm name, the practice name. It started as Parker and Scogin. I don't know if any Parker's here today, but Mack and Ennis left Heary and started the firm. And then shortly thereafter, Lloyd Bray and I were asked to join Mack and Ennis. And over a period of time, it became Scogin, Elam, and Bray. As Ennis moved on to larger opportunities, we missed him. We didn't want him to go, but things
Happen.
happen, and people have choices. And Interestingly, he's been such a major player in our professional lives. And then finally, it went from Scogin, Elam, and Bray to Mack Scogin, Merrill Elam Architects. Lloyd more or less retired. He had found a beautiful piece of property down on the South Carolina coast, and he had a sailboat, and he was ready to sail and live on those beautiful marshes. So we've been putting up with each other now for what is that?
155.
So that's how we practice, and that's who we are today. And as we were sort of thinking about what the trajectory of the firm, we were concentrating on this, thinking about it, speculating, and we came up with a series of 8 things that we thought were sort of major influences on us. And I think a lot of these will pertain to you as well as you think back on it. But one is about family, how you are rooted in a particular place, of who your parents are, and so on. Then your education, Georgia Tech, early experience in the practice world. Then we got involved in children's education and the arts. And through all this, both at Harry and after Harry, we have been involved in the AI, mainly the National Committee on Design. And then academia, that's one of the points for sure that Julie's interested in. And then another thing, influence on us, was Helen Hahn became part of our group. She started at in film at Emory, and eventually ended up in architecture school at Harvard. But in all that, in between then, we worked together with Helen with film and video in our practice. And then finally, the work itself. And I like to think that the work is the physical manifestation of our clients' aspirations and what they want for themselves, and all the programmatic issues, budget, everything wound up in who the client is becomes the work. So that's our 8 topics we're going to try to share with you here. Childhood's rooted in the worlds of designing and making through family. And it's interesting that for both of us, our mothers were involved in money. They were they held
They had all the money. It's just as simple as that.
Most of the time there wasn't very much of it.
No.
Anyway, Mack's mother was a bank teller. My mother was a bookkeeper, and she helped my father run, or maybe my father helped her run his business, which was involved with military tailoring and uniforms. And Mack's father was...
My father managed a workroom for, I don't know if there's not anybody here old enough to appreciate Rich's department store, where they had a number of designers that worked in designing interiors for houses here in Atlanta. And they designed things and everything you can think of that you could decorate a house with. And he managed this workroom. And as a result of that, I grew up in the world's most decorated house. It was not one square inch that didn't have some flourish on it of some nature.
When I went to Mack's house, it was just not a huge house. It was a nice, simple.
Oh, it was pretty big.
But I had never seen that many candles, that many swags, that many, it just went on and on. So it was a real thing.
Tassels. Oh, that's a tassel. You guys probably don't know what a tassel is. Anyway.
So that's And then also, Mac had this, was she an aunt or a great aunt? Is it,
She was an aunt,
and
still is an aunt. Yes.
this, she made this is a,
Well, this is a painting of my sister. I wouldn't let Merrill show my painting of me, but this was my aunt. And I remember growing up with her because she was quite an individual.
this is Aunt Lillian.
Aunt Lillian, and she was an artist. And she married the most, conservative person on the face of the earth. And those two clashing together really was a great experience to watch.
Mac tells me this story that she had this big brimmed bonnet thing that she wore, and she attached her tresses, her curls, to the inside of the rim of the hat. So
Fake hair.
so when she put the hat on, she had her hairdo there too. My father loved collecting these really ugly drawings or paintings. They were prints, of views into the forest and nature and so on. So, and I think Mack's family was basically far more urban in its habits and what on
Way more urban.
than my family.
Clarksville, Tennessee, 6 people. That's it.
And we spent a lot of time. He had cabins off in the woods that we would go to all the time, and he would build. And that's how I learned to use a hammer and found out what a nail was and some other, how to measure things and so on. So a little bit different. So guess what happened after high school? We came to a place of exotic people and a world of an unfamiliar imagination at Georgia Tech. And one of my fondest memories when we weren't too many semesters in, and there was a professor on the faculty here, James Grady. I don't know his middle initial, but he had quite a noteworthy collection. And he came one day to our studio, I guess it was, and he had under his arm this maybe 30 by 40 or something like that.
Very large, yeah.
Yeah, thing wrapped in brown paper, and he took the brown paper off, and lo and behold, it was a Dali painting. And for us, none of us had seen anything like this. Just the sheer magic of the paint on the canvas. And neither of these images is his painting. We couldn't find his collection. I think it's in Ohio somewhere now. But it was more similar. It was like a combination of these two paintings, and it was darker, as I remember. But boy, did that simple sharing of the professor with this magic thing with the students was just an extraordinary moment. And it kind of, I think, reflects or talks to our experience here at Georgia Tech. So now this is after leaving or graduating from Georgia Tech.
Took you longer than me.
Yeah, I had a much harder time getting out of Georgia Tech.
Just 1 year more.
Oh, no.
Is more waiting?
Oh, yeah. I'm not talking about it anymore. But anyway, we had the good fortune of being in Atlanta at a time that both George Heary and John Portman were, it was their era.
Can I talk about this a minute?
Yeah, sure.
I can't emphasize enough about how important close up with George Heary and then a bit distant from John Portman. These were two people that were pretty much outlaws in the practice of architecture in America, where they designed their own practice. They literally designed their own practice. George was guaranteeing the time and cost of all the projects. You might think that's really odd and it would draw maybe not the best of clients. It was just the opposite. It drew some of the best clients that you could possibly imagine. And the process that we went through was really remarkable in terms of having to understand everything about the architecture.
And then John Portland, on the other hand, just a few miles down the road, right, was making these extraordinary spaces. He was acting as architect, developer. He was part owner, developer, whatever. That was completely out of the guidelines of the basic tenets of the profession at the time. I'm not sure if that's still the case. Probably not, but anyway, it was kind of outrageous. But it allowed him to have both the vision for something and realize it in his own terms, which was a pretty rarefied way to practice architecture. That's the interior atrium space of one of his hotels. I think it's in LA. I think this is the hotel in LA. And on the right, on your right, that's the book that George wrote finally, where he got all his thoughts down on how to control cost, time and cost in the design and construction process. And while we were there, Mack touched on we were working for some really amazing clients. John Deere, of course, you know all about John Deere through the Saarinen projects. Rockefeller Center, Becton Dixon Pharmaceuticals, Georgia Power, Westinghouse.
Let me touch on Rockefeller Center. They hired us to look at Rockefeller Center and tell them what they needed to do to improve it. It was over a year, maybe close to 2 years, that we looked at it and looked at it and looked at it, and it ended up, clean your buildings, put a few little trinkets on each identification of each building, and a few things buried on the sidewalk.
Plant trees.
Plant trees, a lot of trees.
So we ended up only designing a tree surround
That's exactly what we did.
for the pavement.
And they paid us for it. And it, I think, paid off. It's there now, and you can see the tree. You can go there and see the tree surrounds.
So we had Georgia Power also as a client. This was in, what do we say down here, in 81. This was during the, the energy crisis, the fuel crisis of that era. And Georgia Power wanted very much to make a statement about that. They needed a new headquarters. Heaven knows how George Heery managed to get these commissions, but he did. And this turned out to be the country, maybe the world's most energy efficient tall building. And we did some
I
simple.
think it still is, actually.
We did some simple things here where you see the big solar collection on the low part there. We call that the pancake. And all those rows are solar collectors. And then architecturally, both the west end of the building was solid, this is the west end that you're seeing in the foreground here. So the views were to the north and the south. And we took the south facade then and stepped it back in increments. So the building was self-shading from the southern sun. I don't have any statistics about how much fuel it used or anything like that, but then the other client that in particular that we enjoyed was Herman Miller. We still do.
We do. They're a fantastic company, as you might imagine. They're so sensitive to the environment that their workers work in. And one of the requirements, their factories, they're really quite large, 200,000 or 300,000 square feet in one floor of manufacturing. And the one thing that they demanded was that every single person in that building all day, every day, had a view out to the exterior. So you had a factory that was basically a glass box.
They were very, very uh, staff oriented. They had a system called the Scanlon system, which took care of all their employees. And it was just a great firm to work for and to be an architect for. And this building is still there. At some point, not long ago, Herman Miller gathered up all of their outlying plants and returned everything to Detroit. So someone else is in this building now, and I think they've painted the canopy another color, not Herman Miller red. Haven't been there in a while. This is out in the Roswell area. Okay, item influence 4 has to do with Goodman McTell at the High Museum called up George Heery and asked him if he would do some pro bono work to make children more comfortable in the arts at the High Museum. And so George, of course, being the generous person that he is or was, said yes. And some years later, after 2 or 3 exhibits, we got this nice little letter that says, "Dear sir, I had fun at the city. I like the sewer best. What will you have next year? I hope there will be an airplane." And I think it's, we were trying to figure out if it's Mary. I think it's Mary Davin Howard. Anyway, we love that little letter.
I can't tell you how much this series of installations meant to us in terms of our expanding our knowledge base on how to make space, on how to use color, on how to use just the expand the notion of the volume of a space without it getting larger, or to make it seem much smaller than it was. Things like that, and under different sort of categories that these exhibits, they had content, of course, and they had meaning for the education in the arts. It was an incredible experience. It was all volunteer pro bono work for us after hours. And it was an incredible, I don't know if Chuck Clark is here. I don't know. Oh, there he is.
And there's Susan Clark Williams.
Hire Chuck Clark. He can do anything. Most of the actual design and installation of this, it's really hit credit to him. But look what we got to study. Look what we got to learn about how to make space collapse and tear apart and etc. And of course, the use of color and materiality. It was an incredible learning experience for quite a few years.
So what happened here in this view, if you came upon it on one side and it looked complete, like the image on the left, and then if you walked around to the other side of the installation, you saw that nothing ever touched each other. So spaces and illusions. This was one little part of that exhibit. And The blue piece on the left is the Phantom Organa, and it was about anthropomorphic. Was that the right word? I don't think I have the right word. But anyway, it's how you see something from one point of view, and then you put it back together through the use of reflection and shape and form. And what was so amazing about this is Goodman Victel and Paula Hancock just had this vision of having places for children to learn about art and be participatory.
They were the leadership of the High Museum.
And that was very unusual at that particular point in time. Not so much anymore, but anyway, it was a real learning exercises for us across all 4 exhibits. Excuse me, 5. And this is the plan of Spaces and Illusions. You see the Phantom Organa. This is a Chuck Clark drawing. Thank you, Chuck Clark. Beautiful. These 2 are also Chuck Clark drawings. This is for the last one, which was called Sensations. And it was all about the 5 senses: taste, sight, smell, touch. Okay. This one?
Yeah. She drew that, what I drew. Who really messed you up? Yeah. Thanks,
Susan
Yeah.
Chalk.
Yeah.
She's out in Idaho and has a great little practice going out there. She's a Georgia Tech grad. You might want to look up her work. Spelled Desko. So you see the eyeball and the slide. And Chuck, who painted this mural that we're seeing in the background there? Do you remember? No, sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Okay. I've been trying to think all day. He was great. It was Rod Wadley. Yeah, Rod Wadley.
I mean, you can imagine how much we were learning doing this, because we were actually building it, painting it, and designing it, and all after hours, except for Chuck. He was 24 hours every day.
Yeah, and we ended, I think, on a show called Spectacles. So through all this time at Erie and in our practice as it is today, we've been active in the AIA, which is the American Institute of Architects. For the students, they may or may not know about it. Mack was chair of the National Committee on Design for a while, for a couple of years. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going the wrong direction. And one of the things that sparked in us was the idea of travel, because the Committee on Design would travel all over and see architecture.
It's also where we didn't really get to know, but somehow we got to contact with Jerry McHugh, who was dean at Harvard at the time. This was about, can't remember what year with them. Anyway, 30 years ago, 31 years ago, wherever that is. Okay.
And he invited Mack to come to Harvard, and that was the first thing. This is also like when Mack chaired the Committee on Design, his place of travel was Natchez, Mississippi. And they met in Jackson and made their way over to the Delta in Natchez. And at a church very similar to this little church you're seeing here, they had Shelby Foote read the Surrender at Appomattox. There wasn't a dry eye in the room.
Some people couldn't stay. And I mean, it was so powerful. And I have to say, Merrill didn't want me to talk about this, but I'm going to say it anyway. This was boycotted. This trip was boycotted by quite a few of the AIA members because we were going to the South in a place that, you know, had the history that it had it. And this little church was a church of completely, every member was African American. And I've never in my life seen a meal and a presentation. It was just so meaningful to all these people that went there. I still run into, I don't know how many years ago, I run into people all over the country that came to this, and they say it was the most meaningful thing they've ever witnessed it with the AIA. So I've been so proud of this, and I just couldn't leave this out.
The way you all might know Shelby Foote is that he wrote the Civil War. That it was a 3-volume set, and it's the work that Ken Burns depended on a great deal when he did his Civil War.
And look at his face. He read in this little white church that is all Black members. He read the surrender, the piece in it, the surrender of.
So
it was half the people just couldn't stay in there.
But what this did, this association with the AIA sparked this thing about travel for Mack and I, about going and actually seeing the architecture firsthand. And what you're going to see here is a fairly recent collection, a potpourri of images from a trip we took from Rome through Barcelona and up to Paris. And I'm not going to talk to every slide. I'm just going to share images. This is a church in Sicily. And this is Corbusier. We had not seen very much of Corbusier's work. So this trip was very, very rewarding for us.
This was only, what, 3 years ago? Something like that.
And when we were in Sicily, we learned about this, actually from Tom Main. He told us to go and see Cripto Buri, means the crack in the earth. And after there was a massive earthquake here, and the whole town was in disarray.
Yeah.
And the artist Buri collected up all the residue from the earthquake and made it into this landform piece, which is on the right hand
This is fine on the right.
And you can see the scale of it as it would have related to the earlier Roman and Italian townships. On the left is a piece in the Lacoste sculpture garden north of, what is it? Somewhere between Barcelona and Paris. It's a wonderful sculpture garden. It's a private place, but it's open to the public. You can go there. So we made that road trip, was just fun and good, all on its own regard. And of course, in Rome, we had the pleasure of going back to see things we'd seen before and loved before, and finding new places and just absorbing, the richness of all these places. The slide on the right is, I call this the Church of the Three Balls, because it had 3 domes. You can see the domes on the interior, how they.
It was funny going back and seeing these after years of being there before. Everything looked contemporary. All of a sudden, these kinds of images where there's such an abstraction to the traditional architecture, and how open and airy, and It just was amazing, an entirely different reaction when we first went there many, many years ago.
And the last two images in this series is Frank Gehry in Paris, the Louis Vuitton on the left, and Gaudi at Sagrada Familia. And what was so exciting for us to get to go into Sagrada Familia, because it had not been open for what, years and years and years and years and years. So that was a real reward. Now, our sixth influence is this idea of our participation in academia.
This is an unfair, I mean, you gotta read this. I was in charge over here. This was just,
I was just Holly-go-lucky.
that was just, she was just in and out.
But you know, I think one of
How to run Harvard, just think about it.
but the thing about teaching is,
By the way, I had never taught, and I went from never teaching to chair of the department. And the reason was that it was Jerry McHugh,
we talked about earlier.
that we talked about earlier, was dean of the school then, and
Did he go? He went on the trip to Natchez.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right. And I don't know, I never asked him why. I just said yes. And so 31 years later, here I stand. Last year and a half ago, I stepped down.
And we have fun with it. The students teaching, this is a silly picture of us giving sort of deja vu all over again, a lecture at Ohio State where we had both taught and done their building and so on. So that's another connection to academia.
Do you want to talk about our teaching method now?
Sure. I don't want to, but you
Okay, I will. I will, because it was all Merrill's idea. Really, we were neophytes when we started teaching. We, oddly started at places like Harvard. But what ended up we didn't know how else to teach. So we decided that you had to teach each individual student differently. That especially in a graduate school, that it made sense to us that you somehow spent at least a third of the studio just simply getting to know the students, who they are, what their capabilities are, and what we could challenge them with as a program. They would choose they had the liberty to choose a site. Every single one of them, every year, would try to choose the dumbest, most ridiculous sites that you could think of, and we would give them way more dumb and difficult programs to address. But throughout our teaching, it's very important, at least to us, for you to understand that we're teaching a little bit outside the norm. Merrill, in all that list that she went to, and then all the time that I was at Harvard. So, and we used very different methods. We used almost half the studio was just simply to get to know the student and their capabilities and their interests.
And they had all sorts of games and assignments for the students to do, and it turned out it was just a mess.
And the programs that we gave them were almost impossible. And they rose to the occasion. I would say 99% of the time.
So this slide right here is just to celebrate across the 18 schools that I was at, that we met wonderful people along the way. We had great conversations. You're seeing Tashika Mori there by Mack, and Mark Lee on the far left-hand side, Jorge Silvetti. But this, we could have a picture like this from all of these, of all the 18 schools I was at. There were all these great people on faculties, this brain power that you just, so what you're seeing now is a video of an option studio offering at Harvard.
This was the name of the studio, the title of the studio.
Can't we just stand?
Yes.
Okay.
I want to quickly give credit to Helen Hahn, who I taught with for God knows how many years, I don't want to admit it, who was from Atlanta. She went to Emory University and ended up at Harvard. And she was the person that did most of these film presentations. And we would present that kind of presentation, against Frank Gehry teaching and other famous and we'd do pretty good. We'd get really good students because they knew that there was kind of a blank page that they needed that they would be faced with, and they would have to rise to the occasion on their own efforts.
So what I'd like to call your attention to is the doodles, all those doodles were Mack's doodles. Over the years, we'd be in meetings, we'd think he wasn't paying attention, and he wasn't. He was making doodles, all those doodles. Helen gathered them all up and made sense out of them. So the next is
Yeah, made a lot of money on that.
so the use of film and video in both practice and education, and they overlap. And the next video you're going to see here is our video about the we were in the American Pavilion at the Venice Biennale. I think it was 2014.
Yeah, sure.
And so and it was based on rebuilding Detroit after all the problems they've had there.
It's better to
And we
embrace
sort
what
of
you can't defeat, to acknowledge it
wrote
enough who they
this,
came to see.
made a
The one and only,
point.
the undefeated, will really make you think that you're gonna be the one to beat it. The heavy hitters and we never gonna retreat. That's why I rep the city that you never gonna defeat.
I was raised in Detroit.
Born on the east side.
Down here in Southwest Detroit.
I'm from Palestine.
Puerto Rico.
I'm half Mexican, half Polish.
Born and raised in Southwest.
Detroit since 1981.
Back in 57, I believe.
1997.
1959 or 1960.
All in Southwest Detroit. I immigrated
this way. You know, my parents arrived here. They left Texas or California.
They're originally from Mexico, northern Mexico.
And both of my parents are from this neighborhood, but they don't speak Spanish.
So when we came here, we weren't rich at all, but we had our family. Go back and look around in Southwest Detroit.
There was so many different races. It wasn't just the same thing every single day. The people were different, the atmosphere. It's just something about this side of town that you got to be a part of.
Kajawanag and Donjiba means where I'm from. It's called Anishinaabe, and it's the original language spoken on this land in this area, specifically Detroit.
And there's several different Anishinaabe words for Detroit, and all of them center around the water.
When you speak that language and you identify yourself, you're identifying your spirit within all the universe. This was all Anishinaabe land. But upon colonization, people got put into reservations, and they made that invisible line that separates Canada to the United States and Mexico. You know, they're imaginary lines, but we are from all this area.
The unique thing about Southwest Detroit, or Mexican town, is it's a few minutes away from downtown, but at the same time it's its own town.
West Verner Highway is the corridor, and then we end at Clark Park.
And people will find themselves cruising down that street. This is like this little circle where you'll see people that you know, you'll see the kids of people that you grew up with, and it's nice to do that, and it's all designed this way.
Well, when they say Mexican town, they only think of east of us down by I-75. It actually has expanded all the way down west of traditional Mexican town. But right here, you're in the heart of it.
If you go around, most of the businesses here are family-owned businesses.
I have young women that come in, 16, 17-year-olds that are looking for a job, and their first thing to say is, "Your dad promised me a job when I was 5 years old." I think that's what my dad wanted. He wanted that neighborhood feeling. We grew up in a neighborhood like that, and he wanted to stick to it.
I was standing on the porch, and then the people next to me, I have never talked to them before. She was like, "Oh, hi," and then we just kept on talking, and you learn stuff about them. That's how I met most of the people from my neighborhood.
Playing as long as I have, that's also the way I got to know this community. I could show up at a house that they hired us to play at. They're complete strangers, and they just welcome us into their house. They're like, "What do you want to eat? What do you want to drink?"
I guess that's just the nature of people here, just welcoming and open arms.
We all know everybody, kind of like a little town, un pueblo. I think that just comes from people coming from different countries, coming into Detroit and becoming a family.
Just a sense of belonging, our culture, the Cinco de Mayo festivals in Clark Park, our stories, our history. It's the food. It's our way of respect within the family, our upbringing, and not only to us, but to our children. And we're constantly reminding them who they are and to be proud of what they are.
Detroit, where you at? It's time that we rise up. But I trust that my people can rise up. Detroit, where you at? It's time that we rise up. Roll down your windows, let this track play. Sit back, relax, go ahead and hit replay. Let the rides begin from the east side all the way to Clark Park. Where you from? Where you from? The Lion's Den.
The Hispanic community here is very strong. This is Mexican town. That's where they immigrated, and it kept the housing market stronger than any other part in Detroit. And that's what made it so special and so different. It's a big community, a lot of families, a lot of people own their own homes, and that's what kept it up.
When I came back to Detroit, the Cadillac plant closed that Christmas, you know, like the light went out signifying this is over. Not just a piece of the plant, the entire thing, and not just a piece of the neighborhood. Like most people had their houses here because they lived close to work.
It was a big deal for a neighbor to see an empty house next to them here. Whether it was a business or a house, it was a huge deal.
Because now it's everybody's home. This is my home. This is their home.
But it's in our neighborhood. We'll board it up. We'll paint it white and paint some flowers. So by the time they come and demolish it, it's not just an eyesore. The grass is overgrown, let's all just go and mow it.
People didn't want graffiti on their garages, so they hired Swamp to come and paint the garages with like murals that they wanted. And it sort of snowballed into like doing businesses. And
the young people in this neighborhood are rising up, and we want to make sure we have a home for people in Southwest Detroit to have a beginning. It's like Motown started from a house, and right now we're starting from a house too.
If you look at it, it started as a house, it started as a dream.
And it's contagious. We're claiming our community, that let there be peace in the community, let there be unity in the community.
There's so many positive things that you could say about Southwest Detroit. We've created sounds of music, forms of art, poetry. We've had so many young artists come out of the community who are just wonderful.
Love my city, but we too complacent. It's like poetry, emotion, picture about emotion, then picture Detroit. That's why it's rage in the artists that we raise. Let me rephrase. We raise artists rage. No, let me rephrase. We artists raise rage.
What's really interesting about Detroit is that each community has its own voice. And so as an artist and as a resident, how do we keep our community seeing beauty?
Our work keeps evolving, We would make music, and then we'd try to talk about how to make our community better.
Because we're not an invisible people, even though it might seem that way. We have new stories to tell and new cultural pieces that we've been adding.
Now it's time to bring that knowledge and that beauty back to the neighborhood. The revolution starts at home, so it starts with myself, and then it starts with my family and my community, and the city, and the state, and the country.
Detroit is that phoenix rising out of the ashes.
A tapestry of indigenous leadership.
Timeless.
Lively.
It is a hard-working city, a persistent city.
Detroit's really beautiful in its own way.
Experience it before you judge it.
A diverse, multicultural family.
It's a melting pot.
We speak for those who don't have the ability to speak for themselves.
The people, the businesses, it's kind of badass.
Southwest Detroit is hard. Southwest Detroit is hate. Yeah, Southwest Detroit is easy. And Southwest Detroit is love.
Southwest Detroit is me.
Southwest Detroit is we.
My name is Herminia Ramirez. They call me Minnie.
Eddie Gonzalez, go by D-Press.
My name is Marina Chavez.
They call me Chris, so they call me Sparks.
Jamal Macklid.
Carly Gorney.
Mahd Hassan.
Denise Galavis.
Bilal Mahaysan.
My name is Christy.
Sylvia Molina Castro.
Naya Rogers.
I'm Miss Phillip.
Lisa Marie Rodriguez.
Daisy Martinez.
King Briss.
Karen Hernandez.
Gianni Carrazzo.
Esteban Castro.
Noxarelli come from the southwest side of Detroit.
So there's another video to follow, and this is a video that we did for an open competition for a World War II museum in Gdansk, Poland, and we produced this video for that competition. We didn't win it. We very seldom win a competition, by the way. Okay. Where were we? Okay, anyway, but I had a special interest in participating in this competition because my father had fought in World War II. He was in the Navy and he was on a one more, I think. Let's see. Thanks, Kate. By the way, Kate Canfield has worked so hard to help us get this presentation together. I just
do it.
take this moment to.
Oh, here you go.
And so this is the video that we produced in response to that open competition.
Erstens, sie wollte eine wahrhaftige Weltanschauungspartei sein. Zweitens, sie wollte daher kompromisslos die einzige Macht und alleinige Macht in Deutschland. Die deutschen Truppen rücken in die eroberte Stadt ein. Dass sie uns mit schweren Vorwürfen beladen. Ihr habt vielleicht geglaubt, uns mit diesem blutigen Terror Mürbe zu machen. Ich versichere euch, ehe noch 2 oder 3 Monate vergangen sind, wird euer Terror beseitigt sein. Verwahren wir das für alte
So now we come to the last 8 of the influences that we were talking about. And we believe that the work actually is the physical form of our clients' aspirations. And we'll just march through this little collection of work. As you know, that's the Buckhead Library on the left-hand slide there. This is a detail from our project at Jackson Park on the right. House Schmar, which is on Stalian Avenue.
The first house, they had a wooded lot and they didn't want to cut down a single tree, so they had a very narrow house, one on the left.
We found a place where a tree had fallen in the woods, and that was where the house went. On the right is a model for our competition entry at UConn, which we didn't win again, for an arts and performing arts, fine arts building. What you see on the left is part of the K-pop center in Taiwan. And on the right is the doorway to the house in Maine on Horseshoe Pond for Margaret Nomentana. On the left is the Rheingold house, and the doorknobs are those hunky things you see attached to the door. The little ones for the 2-year-old and the 10-year-old and the 18-year-old and the adults.
Corny.
On the right is, these are both front doors. The front door to the Herman Miller showroom. I don't think it's any longer used. This is what we see at 64 Wakefield Drive. On the right is Yale Health lobby, entrance lobby, and on the left, the main lobby of the Austin Courthouse in Austin, Texas, federal courthouse. It's Margaret Nomentana's house in the snow on the left. Oh, and this is our entry to the Wolfsburg Science Center competition, which we didn't win it either. This one went to Zaha, and she did a very beautiful building there, but you'll see what we were trying to do there. Wolfsburg is where Dr. Porsche and Hitler built a huge plant to build Volkswagens. And what we did was take this science center and move it up to be just slightly higher than the stacks on the Volkswagen plant. And 4 of these tendrils hold up the science center. The rest do other things, mainly mesmerize. That's what the science center will look like from the fast train, which goes through Wolfsburg, Germany. I'm sorry, I didn't tell you that. The roundhouse is on the left. This is a collage of the Wolfsburg Science Center. This is an interior shot of Herman Miller's manufacturing plant in North Georgia. And again, there's daylight and windows and the Scanlon plan at work for Herman Miller. This is one of our newest build projects. It's a federal courthouse in Des Moines, Iowa, and it sits across the Des Moines River there, directly on the axis with the City Hall, and further up the hill, the state capitol. So it's quite a interesting place to build a federal courthouse. This is the federal courthouse in Austin, Texas, which was the exact same program, but very different state of mind.
The judges at the border were able to demand a lot more money spent on their courtrooms, and they deserved that privilege. believe me.
I think the Des Moines courthouse, which didn't have that same privilege, has probably more gypboard in it than any federal courthouse in the country.
I tell you, do a federal courthouse, it'll absolutely make you proud of this country. Those judges and what they do and how they handle themselves is absolutely magic. It's incredible.
Let me go back one here. Here. This is the stone panels by Ann Hamilton, the artist we work with at Des Moines. And it was such a wonderful tribute to the words that we live and believe in. And words again here, this is Clayton County Library, headquarters library down in Clayton County. And it takes all its cues from the Strip Shopping Center, parking out front, front door, etc. And another Clayton County Library with the handprints on the left. And we invited all the little kids to come and put their hands, we gave them gloves and they put their hands in the wet stucco and beat on the stucco with pine branches and just had a good time. This is a plan for the Loven Dance Center outside of London, another competition we didn't win. You're going to get tired of me saying that. A house we did, the Roundhouse on the left, and part of our K-pop music center on the right, the Schmar House on the right, Buckhead Library on the left. Is that right? Yeah. The Schmar House on the left and High Museum, the Georgia Pacific Center on the right.
Go back. Interesting to note that that was the museum downtown was our first project when we started our own firms. So in a way, all the dedication and time that we spent at the High really paid off.
And plus just getting to work with the people at the High, such a great client. This is 3 Alliance Center on the right. Again, Buckhead Library, and on the right is a building at Carnegie Mellon University. It's a School of Computer Sciences. And what we were attempting to do here was to individuate each window, each office, just like the recognition of each member of the faculty. And this is a combination at 64 Wakefield. This is one Midtown. Oh, sorry. Yes.
That house is not there. That's a reflection on the glass. It's a concrete wall.
Transparent concrete.
Yeah, you can see right through the concrete.
No?
No.
Okay, now. And this is a chandelier at 1 Midtown Plaza. And Wellesley, the Lulu Chowang Campus Center on the right at Wellesley. And the Mountain House on the left, the Mountain House on the left again. And on the right is the Herman Miller. Again, Herman Miller on the right-hand slide. And a house we did for the Rhinegold's. I showed you the door handles in one of the first slides for the 3 kids and the adults. Mom and Dad. Herman Miller on the left, showroom. And Herman Miller on the right, the trailer park. This was a competition, another one we didn't win. This was a main public library in Helsinki. We thought we did great work, but they didn't agree with us. This is the house on Horseshoe Pond in Maine that you saw the entry to earlier. These are the same door pulls. And the house at 64 on the left, 64 Wakefield, and 3 Alliance Center on the right.
Which is actually in Atlanta. One of the few things that we've done here.
These are 2 more competitions we didn't win. On the left is the Bank of International Settlements, BizBank. It's the place where all the money in the world gets calculated and traced and whatever. And each floor of their expansion program, we made to address that program on each floor of the existing circular tower that you're seeing there. And on the right is a study or a rendering for our art center at UConn, University of Connecticut. And this is the house above the bug line on the right. On the left, you're seeing a plan view of the K-pop complex. And on the right is Ohio State University in a snowstorm. And the owner, this is a little story where the owner, Mr. Knowlton, absolutely insisted that he would not give his money unless his building was clad in Georgia white marble. He would not be talked out of it. So we ended up cladding the building in shingles, white marble shingles. And of course, on the left is Buckhead. These are studies for the UConn project, the Art Center at UConn. And this is the renovation of the at Harvard University of the library building, the science library across the plaza from the lawn. On the right is a project that's no longer there, but that little chapel was at Emory University there on Clifton Road. There was the School of Theology built a center for their theologians who would come part of the year to school. And on the left is a house that we did in Sheshan, outside China. It was one of, I think we designed 4 different villas for a complex there. One of the first free and a capitalist sort of a free, like we would call it a subdivision. And we were asked to design some houses there. So what you're seeing there is a clay tile that we took the idea from the Chinese typical clay tile roofs. On the right is our project I talked about at Emory, the School of Theology. This is the house in Maine from the other viewpoint on the left, and a study on the right for Pittsburgh Children's Museum. Another competition we didn't win. This is a school, library of music out at Berkeley, UC Berkeley. Both images. This is at Clemson ICAR, their Automotive Research Center. The bar in the red is the bar at the Wellesley Campus Center. And again, this is 3AC. And on the right, you're seeing the iCar on the inside, so you get a hint of the scale of the building where they bring the cars in to actually do research. And then the left is the Cabinet of Curiosities at our Tulsa project at the gathering place in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And you're looking down on the boathouse here, and this roof is the first time that fiber reinforced polymer has been used in a structural manner. So we're very proud of that little achievement out there. This is one of our latest projects in Wellesley. OSU, Ohio State on the left. The house in Maine and the Schmar House. Again, the High Museum at Georgia Pacific Center. This is Jackson Park, 3 high-rise buildings in Long Island City, New York, for Tishman Speyer. You're seeing the fast train, the bullet train there in the foreground. And then the lobby of 3AC out in Buckhead. This is the Yale Health Center. Their campus, sort of a mini hospital thing. The detail at Jackson Park on the left. Now you can see those tiles from the house in Shishan Villas on the right there. And now our last 2 projects currently under construction is MoCA GA, the Museum of Contemporary Art of Georgia. That's their working artist, and these are the working artist programs that work of those artists. And it's over here, not far from school, in what's called the Goat Farm, which is an old industrial site. And we've proposed a sort of industrial cladding of rusting steel. And the last thing we're showing you here is the stitch. This is for downtown Atlanta, where you what you're seeing here in the red is a CAP project over Highway I-85, I-75.
Keep going. They want us to stop.
Yeah. We'll stop. Anyway, this is an interesting project. We're doing phase 1, 2 buildings there, a shade pavilion and a little gateway pavilion. These are the last 2 slides. There we go. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.